Of course, as always, I'm your humble host, Niko House. Today with me, I have two very esteemed guests who are representative of the organization, the United Left. And before we get started, I'll let them introduce themselves, give a brief description of the United Left, and then we'll go ahead and get into the drama. So first, Erica, you reached out to me about a week or so ago with information not only about what we're going to be talking about today, but also about the United Left. So can you go ahead and let people know a little bit about your background and then talk about the United Left, and then we'll let Jen go ahead and give a little bit about her background as well.
Sure. So hi, my name is Erica. I am the External Communications Director for the United Left. Overall, we've only been around for a few weeks, but during that time period, we've had a great time establishing connections and meeting new people and really trying our best to be the glue in the fractured left. So our whole goal is it's in the name, for the United Left. So we don't ask anyone to drop their names or join a party or do anything like that. We are trying to help make it so we don't have a thinned out volunteer base in the left anymore, voting base, and we want to be able to encourage each other and help prop each other up. And our goals are much further than the 2020 election. Right now, we're just trying to help fix some of those relationships and really pull everyone together for people. So.
Awesome. Jen, can you go ahead and give a little bit about your background?
Hey guys, my name is Jen. I am the art director for United Left and am a former Howie Hawkins volunteer. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. So thank you for having us, Niko.
Awesome. I appreciate you guys. And for me and anybody who's been a part of this channel, you know how I feel about the left in general. I feel like one of our biggest problems is that we are so fractured because people have invested in party politics more than actual issue-based politics. It's not even about ideology anymore. It seems like it's about protecting the brand more than anything. And so based off the conversations that I've had with both Erica and Jen, and based off of conversations that the United Left, the organization, has had with people that I know that I didn't even know they knew, we really like where the United Left is headed, how they're trying to kind of help usher in this post-party, post-partisan era of activism and advocacy. And so just me personally, I really appreciate you basically putting your personal time to the side and saying, hey, these problems can no longer wait. So we got to dedicate whatever time we can to addressing these issues. Now, part of uniting the left is exposing some of the corruption in the left, which is what we're here to talk about today. So you all remember when we had Ian Slackman on, and we had Justin, which was a Green Party official, come on, and they had a discussion about how true or legitimate the criticisms of the Green Party, of the Howie Hawkins campaign, and how they've been treating opponents of Howie Hawkins, how true that stuff is. Today, it's a little bit of that, but it's a lot more of that. And so first, I would like to ask Jen to discuss this engagement that you and one of the other members of the United Left had with Andrea, who is one of either like the chair or the campaign manager for the Howie Hawkins campaign.
So I'm just, I guess, going to say the main part of it is that Andrea, who is the manager for Howie Hawkins campaign, I speak with her on our project management software, and where we do a lot of our volunteering planning. And she shared a full background check on another candidate in a group chat. And it kind of put me in a really awkward situation. So
now, when you say a full background check, can you give us a little bit, not on the person, because I don't want people going to look up the person, but can you give some detail about what that background check entailed? Was this just criminal background check where you could just Google the background, or was this more detail, maybe financials or something to that extent?
Absolutely. It's the full report. So it showed financial reports, criminal records, other sensitive information like their contact information, family, their contact information for family members. It's kind of scary actually, because if I had wanted to do something awful to this person, like I would have all the information I needed.
Yeah, and once again, this is also coming from Howie Hawkins' campaign team against another opponent. And so in situations like that, I would ask myself, well, because I was a surrogate for Tulsi Gabbard, for example, if her campaign manager, who was her sister actually at the time, did something like that on an opponent, this is beyond campaign financials. This is someone's personal life. You're talking about mortgage information, people, their debt, their relationships, like something you have to basically pay, if either have a social security number or pay money to get, or be one of the credit unions to get. And a campaign manager tried to win. And by the way, we should say, and the reason that this happened, the context of it was someone was politely asking or responding to the campaign saying, hey, this Andrea woman is not doing the Green Party any good, like right now, nor is she doing the Howie Hawkins campaign, because she made and one of you all can remind me that she made a comment to a potential Green Party supporter. What was the comment?
There was another member of the United Left, but at the time she was really focusing on the first group that we had began in, which was it was a grassroots organizing for the Green Party efforts, essentially. And so we both were tagged in a screenshot of a Facebook conversation of a Green voter asking Andrea, fair questions. He was talking about like the lack of urgency in the campaign and the fact that it didn't really, like, on the outside, it didn't really seem like they were trying. And she had engaged in an argument with the voter, and at the end of it said, well, we're winning, thanks for playing. And someone took that screenshot, put it on Twitter, and they had tagged the United Left, the People for Greens page, and they were like, hey, what is this? Do better. And it put us in a position to where it's like, might not have been the ones doing it, and we haven't officially partnered with the Green Party, but when you have something on the left, people's minds will instantly be like, oh yeah, well, these guys go together. And we do want to hold people accountable, of course, but
yeah. And it's antithetical to what, like, y'all are literally at the conversation that we had basically was about the most polite, or the way y'all responded was like the most polite way you could respond to something like that. It was completely professional and PR based. Like, hey, this just isn't smart. I don't even, like, I'm not saying whether I'm voting for you or if I'm voting for an opponent. Like, as a person who, and if I recall, the person that actually responded to Howie's team initially, Caitlin, she is a comms director. She's in PR, correct?
Yes.
Like that's her job. So she was actually doing the campaign of service, and the campaign manager responded by doxing an opponent rather than actually addressing the issues with what was being said.
Well, in the initial conversation, to be like, hey, this is not a good look, Andrea pretty much brushed it off and said that, it's none of her business, and it's more or less was just like, don't tell me what to do, essentially. And so it was like in a separate chat. So it was later on that Jen had received a message from Andrea asking, hey, do you know this person? They crossed the line, and, still angry about it. And it was just like, it puts volunteers in such a weird position, and it's not something that really should be talked about between, the volunteers and then the actual campaign staff. And that was when it transpired into, by the way, and tried to redirect the conversation about the other candidate.
So I've heard about Andrea from you all, right? I heard about Andrea from opponents, which of course you got to take what the opponents say with a grain of salt. I've heard about Andrea from people who are no longer running also. And I've heard about Andrea from party members. I've heard about Andrea from social media. I've heard about Andrea almost exclusively in a negative light at this point. And so now we're like seeing an established pattern of behavior. So you do have to wonder, who the hell is Andrea and why is she the campaign manager of Howie Hawkins? What positions has she had? Have y'all heard anything else outside, like with her regarding her behavior outside of the Howie Hawkins campaign? What's going on here?
So we had the same question. I'm relatively new to the Green Party. Like you said, I was in the military. So the last presidential election, I was still active. And so I didn't really have much to do with it. And then this go around, I was a Bernie Sanders supporter. And then when he dropped out, it only felt natural to go to the party that had the platform essentially that matched mine. But when this happened, we started having a lot of questions, and we didn't really understand the structure of things or who to talk to or what to do, because we were honestly concerned because it's just literally risking someone's life at the expense of a joke. And we have no idea who else received this. And so
yeah, that's peculiar too, because this doxing, the way it was described, and correct me if I'm wrong, basically Andrea had all this person's information like that immediately. Like she just has been, anytime someone puts up a criticism of Howie or her specifically, instead of addressing the criticism, she just pulls that out. So you do have to wonder, is this the only person she has this information on? And how often has she tried to dox opponents in the past where it simply doesn't become public?
That's kind of the scary part, definitely. And when at the time, I didn't really have many connections to the inside of the Green Party. And we had already tried to contact the Howie Hawkins campaign through his Twitter, but she runs his Twitter. So, I mean, in regards to any kind of communications with the campaign, there really wasn't a way in. And so we had gone to another national co-chair that we had some connection with previously, probably a week ago now at this point. And, just tried to fill him in and say, hey, like this is going on. I'm not sure what to do. Jen had talked to him first, and it was overall just like, we don't know how things are set up. We don't know who is even in charge of this, because there wasn't really anything clear online.
Yeah, and to just kind of expound on that, like from my experience, so when we had Justin come on and he was quote unquote clarifying and some things that Ian Slockman had addressed. Now Justin is an official on the presidential committee. Like basically they're the ones who help to create the apparatus for the presidential election for the Green Party. He's a member of this committee. And so that's why he came on. But the issue was that every time we would ask him a question about something the national Green Party was doing, or even a state level Green Party was doing, the response would always either be, well, these people just don't understand how politics work in the Green Party, which was like a bizarre response. But the other response was, oh, well, it's just decentralized. So we're decentralized. So if somebody does something inappropriate, they do something that's wrong, for quite frankly, which we actually have seen examples of all over this election for the Green Party, then we just can't do anything about it because we're decentralized.
Yep.
But they are able to funnel resources into one campaign or another. And that, by the way, is confirmed by Andrea herself. Howie Hawkins' campaign manager told me they submitted an amendment to allow the Green Party to specifically funnel money and resources in a way that only and exclusively benefited Howie Hawkins, despite the fact that there were other candidates running, and one is damn near in a virtual tie with Howie Hawkins at the moment. So just to elaborate a little bit on why Erica or Jen would be confused, because we none of us have any idea how any of this works. And y'all even brought up the fact, and I'll let Jen talk about this. When y'all brought on Justin, who is an official, who is more than welcome, by the way, to come back on and address and clarify any of this nonsense, he said some troubling things, from how the other candidates were being treated to the overall goal of the Howie Hawkins campaign officials, or lack thereof as far as goals are concerned. The way that they've gone about their business in general. So can you just briefly update us on like the conversation that came about when y'all were finally able to get back in touch with Justin?
So we wanted to speak with the other co-chairs, and it took some time for Justin to kind of get back to us, follow up with us, and I didn't think that I don't think he took it seriously.
As a group or just as individuals? Like, are you saying like
as individuals, since we wanted to go ahead and have him come on, and so we could ask questions to see how this thing works. And one of the first things that we asked for is that, like, how could something like this happen and not have any type of accountability set in place?
For doxing, right?
Exactly. And we wanted to ask specifically, is there an ethics committee for the Green Party? There needs to be some type of accountability or transparency. But we were disappointed really to hear his answer that there wasn't one. And we ended up having a few other co-chairs, national co-chairs, Gloria Matera, Kristen Combs, on a meeting with us to ask them the same questions. And really the answers that we got were more like our hands are tied. We don't know what, we're decentralized. There's not really, we can't tell them what to do. We can't tell the Howie Hawkins campaign really.
It's a really bizarre answer. I don't understand like how you can even, for one, have any nonprofit organization, because effectively that's what they are, without an ethics committee. But two, what it sounds like is that they're being disallowed from creating an ethics committee. And by the way, if with like, for example, Andrea, this person that we're still trying to understand, she's not just the campaign manager for Howie Hawkins, as we talked about last time. She used to be the national co-chair for the Green Party, and she is still the chairwoman of the Colorado Green Party. And you have to wonder how not only does this type of incompetence continuously get rewarded, but how she's not being punished for this type of behavior. And then when clearly they asked, well, why not establish an ethics committee? Somebody, I guess, tried to, and it was killed.
Yep. It was last June. It was last June. They had, it was a lot of the Virginia Green Party members had put up a proposal to create an ethics committee. And we actually found that proposal and read through it. And it was a great proposal. We could not figure out why it would be voted down. But I mean, I think we know why it got voted down, but we couldn't find a logical reason. And also, since the party had been around so long, it didn't make sense that this whole time there was not something put in place to help oversee any kind of issues like that. Because if you are decentralized, which I am for, decentralization, but if you can't hold anyone accountable, and if you don't even have a conflict of interest clause to make it so people like Andrea cannot be a chair member of the Colorado Green Party when they're the ones that decide the ballot access requirements, while being a campaign manager, there's literally no accountability, and you can see it because now it's just running wild.
Yeah, and she still sits on several committees in the Green Party, and one of them, I believe, is a media committee, right? So that controls the way that media flows to and for presidential candidates, even though she's a campaign manager for a presidential candidate. On top of that, she is like, Colorado, for example, is a big state with a lot of delegates. And of course, once again, anybody is welcome to come on and argue this point, but there is speculation that she basically went to war with the local Greens in Colorado. And instead of her being ousted, the result ended up being local Green parties in Colorado ended up dissolving, which is inexplicable. Because I'm going to be quite frank, ladies and gentlemen, Andrea is a Latina woman. The truth of the matter is, you're not supposed to get that much rope to hang yourself with when you're a person of color in any party, especially if you're a woman of color in any party, period. And it doesn't really matter if it's leftist or right, but you just don't get that type of rope. But you're talking about not only, once again, has she had that type of rope, has she been able to basically crush anyone who stood in her way along the way, but she keeps getting rewarded for it. So there is obviously someone stepping in to protect people like Andrea. And at the end of the day, we have to demand accountability. And Howie Hawkins, he can say, "Oh, I'm not online. I'm not part of social media." Like, yeah, there are people managing that for me. But truth is, it's Andrea managing it because Andrea responds from Howie Hawkins' accounts. Mm-hmm. So at that point, if this was any other candidate from a major political party, who would be held accountable? Would it be their campaign manager, or would it be the candidate themselves? And the truth is, it'll be the candidate themselves. And that's just the reality. But what we're seeing is that it's actually extending beyond now even just doxing. We're finding out, I mean, I'll let y'all tell the story, but basically the campaign has been involved in keeping people from speaking at events. And even something major that could determine the outcome of the election involving ballot access. Could one of you all elaborate on that?
Sure. So there was, in regards to the conflict of interest that I was talking about earlier, about our initial concerns of being like, why is she, or is anyone, why would anyone be able to have a vote or have a say on the ballot access when it's state to state?
Decentralized, right?
No, yeah, right. And it's not democracy, and it is just insane. And so when we really started digging into things to kind of figure, because the painful part is we want the Green Party to succeed. We want, like they have the national ballot access already, in a perfect world, we would have been able to just all come together. Like I said, we're not wanting to attack the Green Party. I mean, like I said, I went to the Greens right after Bernie had dropped out. We all did. I mean, Jen was literally volunteering her time and she's a professional designer to, really try and help the Howie Hawkins campaign. And so when we really started digging into things, that's when we started finding just so many things that just had no accountability to. And the big one that you were talking about with ballot access is North Carolina. And things were not lining up about what happened in North Carolina. I know Dario had spoken about it off of his Twitter. When we looked into it, that was one of the first things that we saw.
So just to clarify, there were some last minute changes that basically made sure that Dario, who's basically Howie's number one opponent in there. Like I said, they're essentially in a tie. He was kept off the ballot based off of very, very last minute changes that remember whenever Tulsi Gabbard was kept off the debate stage after she qualified? That's effectively what happened to Dario. So just to clarify, he had suspected that there was some funny business there, but we couldn't really confirm it until recently.
There was, and that kind of goes back to the conflict of interest. So when you have someone like Andrea who has allies all over the Green Party, and you have, you were a national co-chair and you are still a state co-chair, and you are on, all types of different committees, because I believe she was on the presidential,
She was on the same committee that Justin is currently on.
Yes. And so the problem there was those connections don't just go away,
and everything she could have did to set up to make sure Howie got like before she left, all she had to do was make sure every single advantage was set up for Howie Hawkins, the person that she's going to be the campaign manager of, so that she could have plausible deniability when she gets off. Because she left, and then like right after that, she was on Howie's campaign. It was like when Debbie Wasserman Schultz got fired from the DNC, and then she was hired right to Hillary Clinton's campaign.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what kind of made it all hard. And so when North Carolina last minute changed their ballot access, it just doesn't make sense. And I think we all know, put two and two together, what had happened there. And it was kind of eye-opening to see, because a lot of us had left the Democratic Party because of between the 2016 election and what happened with Bernie Sanders with superdelegates and just overall, the manufacturing consent going on in the corporate media. So we leave and we go and we're like, okay, the Green Party, this makes sense. And we see the same things happening. I mean, sure, they might not have the same funding into their machine that the Democratic Party has, and they don't have the same legislative power. But you have to ask yourself, why would people want to go to the Green Party to help prop up a fractured infrastructure when if we wanted to do that, I mean, that's what progressives have been trying to pitch in the Democratic Party for years is, stay, get into office, run for office, fix the system. But it doesn't make sense why you would want to empower the people at the top that are keeping you down. It just never made sense to me. And that was pretty much what I was told when we started asking these questions is run for office. Jen, I'm sure you remember oh my God. And it was such an insult because it was like, I'm not going to do anything. You can do it. You can run. And the funny part is like, I am running in 2022 and I did reach out to the Green Party in my state. And they never emailed me back. They never called me back. So it's like...
Well, I think it's also worth mentioning as well that not only were people suspect, like they were like, this thing with North Carolina and Dario isn't adding up. But a Green Party official confirmed that Dario was kept off of North Carolina's ballot on purpose. A Green Party official at the top confirmed this. So now you're in... like worse than DNC territory. This is exactly what Bernie Sanders and his people are dealing with right now in the state of New York, right? Mm-hmm. But obviously Yang and others who had the money to battle that type of thing got it fast tracked. So, and it's going through a process, but still Dario doesn't have the type of funding to battle something like that. And he definitely doesn't have the type of clout, unfortunately, because he should, but he doesn't have the type of clout to get that fast tracked through the courts like Bernie Sanders and Andrew Yang were able to do. And so now you get to a situation where you're trying to figure out, I mean, and by the way, there's only really two people who could really win and three people that were being considered in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And the two people that had a chance to win were Dario and Hawkins, and Dario was the one somehow, which is seemingly always the case, right? Somehow mess ups always benefit the elite of any given party, and Howie is absolutely the elite of the Green Party, but more specifically, the people who work with him are the elite of the Green Party. So now you're looking at a situation where Howie Hawkins' campaign is allegedly working with state parties to keep people off ballots. So who do we hold accountable, people? I'm genuinely asking you, because that is some heavy stuff. And I don't know if you all have looked into Dario and his vice presidential candidate, but you should, because he's the best person running in the Green Party right now. I mean, that's just me being objective. His policies are, foreign policy is on par with Tulsi. His domestic policy is better than Bernie or Tulsi's, if you've supported either of them. He's actually had experience in the government on a school board. And made a lot of changes because there's a lot of corruption in his district. The man lost his job as a rabbi. He is forbidden from being a rabbi in his state because of his stance on Israel and Palestine. So that's what makes this even more bizarre, that because Andrea, from experience and from the experience of others, tries to gaslight people and say that everybody who stands up to her because of her smear attempts to protect Howie in the campaign, everybody who stands up to her is racist and sexist. And she pretends like race is so important to her. And yet she didn't get behind Dario when Dario, before Howie even thought about announcing, Dario was polling at 66% nationally with the Green Party for the election. Nobody had even came close to him. And given the direction of politics in general, given the precedent that the Green Party has set in the past that they wanted to set, hell, given the precedent that Jill Stein herself has set, why would you then go with someone who, like, if you're Andrea, who's pro-Russiagate, right? That in an election where the people who are clearly getting their asses handed to them are all pro-Russiagate. Why would you go with someone who pushes or who said that, Tulsi shouldn't have gone to Syria to try and figure out how she can work and the United States can work with Assad to end that civil war there? Why would you say that diplomacy is not a choice in that scenario and ridicule her for that? But why would Andrea support that? Once again, it's not just her support of Howie, but the chronological order is important to understand here. Dario was in the race. Dario was killing it in polling, and Andrea and Kevin Zeese, who many of you all know is a foreign policy activist, right? He was one of the ones that were in the Venezuelan embassy. Okay, this dude puts foreign policy supposedly above any and everything else, and yet when someone who is clearly the best on foreign policy enters the race, you advocate for someone who is clearly worse. What's the goals here? Well, I mean, actually, it's probably the most important part, because one of the same official who admitted that Dario was purposely kept off of North Carolina's ballot also admitted Howie Hawkins' campaign is not trying to get 5%. So if you're wondering how the hell is this doing Green Party any favors? How is this helping them win that 5%? And some of you might have even watched Pasta and I interview Kevin Zeese, because Pasta was trying to make the case of a lifetime for why Howie should be reaching out to these individuals and trying to coalesce them and be a little bit more amenable to people who are telling the truth about how his campaign has worked with other state parties and local parties to suppress and oppress them. Kevin Zeese was not trying to hear it. And he was like, it could help the party. And Kevin Zeese, his words, you can see it in the interview. He said, no, all these candidates are trash. His policy, his differences with Dario had zero to do with policy. It was all ad hominem. So what exactly is your goal then? I mean, do you ladies have any idea what the hell? Like, what is this?
It's frustrating, especially because, like I said, like with the United Left, we have been trying our best, because we've been talking to groups from all over the spectrum of the left. I mean, seriously, like not just parties, but also, lots and lots of like very powerful movements and groups, and have been having incredibly constructive conversations. And we've really been able to bridge the gap that's been missing with a lot of these parties. But we kept running across, because like I said, we're like the middle ground, and not in like a weird centrist way, but like I come with I'm not trying to sell anyone anything. I'm not trying to make sure that I have a brand that wins. It's like, I want people to come together, and we want people to come together so, we can help lift each other up. And we kind of kept running into the same problem, because I'm sure we've always heard like the Democrats say that if we were to have a left third party, you're splittering the vote and you're going to cause, fascists to win. And we hear the same arguments happen from the Green Party. And when I talk to the other parties that are going to be, emerging into 2022, I do ask those questions, because I know we're going to be asked those questions. And so when I ask people, hey, why are you, doing a new party? We've kind of heard the same thing time and time and time again. And it talks about the structure and the lack of, pushing and not necessarily as much corruption, but a lot of times people will have like a bad incident happen with the party and never see it addressed.
Well, I wouldn't even say it's not corruption at this point, because when you have a party, the party said to you all as an organization, they straight up said, our hands are tied, we can't create an ethics committee. Then what the hell else would you call that? You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't, it's nothing short of corruption. And that's like the most optimistic way to put it. Is you could say it's maybe a corruption of an individual. You might be able to say it's a few individuals and not the whole party, which is, maybe fair, considering that the entire state party of Colorado tried to stand up to Andrea, and look what happened to them. I mean,
and you can look that up also. There's an 18-page document that lays out everything that they were, proposing, and they were asking for help. And then I believe they had like over 200 pages of evidence of supporting their claims. And that was in 2016 or 2017. And now, do you see? So since there's no accountability and there's no like outside figure to look at these things, it's like you were saying, it's like, is it a person? Is it the whole thing? Is it, I wish I could tell you, because we've been trying to figure it out. We've been asking these questions. I mean, I'm sure you saw what happened in Georgia with the Georgia Greens,
with the lavender,
and they went against the wishes of the doctors and the Lavender Greens, the LGBT community within the Green Party. And that happened on February 22nd, months ago, that they put in this anti-trans legislation and wording.
Which is like, how in the era of Biden and Trump, when you're trying to supposedly get 5%, would you do something like that? Like right now, on top of it, right? And then on top of what makes it even worse, honestly, is the fact that it looks like it was, even though it was targeting the Lavender Caucus, it looks like it was specifically targeting Dario because he is part of that community. So they were trying to create this anti-LGBTQ sentiment that would directly affect Dario, because honestly, and obviously, he would have to respond to it and put himself out there when he wasn't trying to win anything based off of his identity, or obviously be hurt based off of his identity. He was campaigning on issues and issues alone. And so now you put them in a predicament, and then, but once again, Howie has been perfectly fine with the Lavender Caucus being thrown under the bus and the LGBTQ community being thrown under the bus by the Georgia Green Party. And when we asked Green Party officials why no one was being held accountable here, why the Green Party was not stepping in here, why Howie Hawkins or the Green Party at large has made an official statement condemning these actions, because even if you're decentralized, why can't you just condemn it? They say, well, we're decentralized. We can't do anything. We're decentralized. Like, hold up. So you allow people to be bigots? Wait, just because you're decentralized? Like once again, the Democratic Party is bad, and they would never be that explicitly bigoted. I mean, Joe Biden is pushing the envelope, okay? Pushing the envelope. But as far as the party is concerned, they always try to put up the appearance of being diverse. Whereas right now, the question really has to be posed. Like, are we seeing a pattern emerge where there has been a clear effort from within the Green Party to keep them from becoming viable? Why is the Movement for the People's Party, for example, making so much headway on state ballot access, on ballot initiatives? They've already won some ballot initiatives in some states. They have made more headway without a single candidate to tout, which is by design, than the Green Party has with candidates all over the country. And at a time where Jill Stein had created so much momentum, an incredible amount of momentum, breaking all the records that the Green Party could ever hope to set, she was basically like, it was all in vain, damn near. Because their immediate thought was, we should follow this up by putting Howie Hawkins on the ticket and literally ignoring the guy who has 66% support. How the hell do you get to that conclusion? Unless you knew that allowing someone like Dario or maybe even Ian Slackman, for example, who both have a significant amount of experience, and they both are very, very qualified within their own rights. If you allow them to win, then that 5% is not just a vanity project. They're going to work their asses off and hold anybody accountable along the way who would prevent the Green Party from achieving that 5% goal. But in the case of Howie Hawkins and his team and the Green Party's leadership at large, they don't seem to care. They seem like, they are. Like I said, the official admitted it. They're not trying to get the 5%. But yet they're still raising money from you.
That was kind of the hard part when we were really starting to dive deep into a lot of these issues. And because like I said, like we literally started as a grassroots movement for the Green Party. Like that was how, that was literally how we met. It was, we were working constantly to try and do everything that we could. And when we realized that there needed to be a general unity in the left, that's kind of when the United Left stuff. So, there's still the separate Green organizers. We have kind of our own thing happening now. And it was just like, it was heartbreaking. Literally, as we started like seeing these things and kind of diving deeper and deeper into the fact that there isn't a conflict of interest clause in most cases in the party, and there's no ethics committee, and the Georgia Greens, the anti-trans stuff, and the lack of accountability for absolutely anything. It was absolutely heartbreaking because we had already suffered the abuse from the Democratic Party, and, you know, dealt with just the heartbreaking loss of the Bernie Sanders campaign. And instead of just being like, whatever, we're not going to vote, I don't care anymore, be done with it, a lot of us started transferring over to the Green Party. And I was a Howie Hawkins supporter. Jen was a Howie Hawkins supporter. Kate, I mean, literally all of us. And I respected Dario, and I think Dario's an absolutely fantastic candidate. But it's like you said, I had only really known about Howie Hawkins because of how their media is ran, and the fact that, like, I knew about, like, the Green New Deal, and I knew about, you know, things like that. But, like, my mom, who's a super low information voter, didn't know who anyone was. And so when you have that boost in media and appearance, it does make a difference. And the way, the fact that there was such a connection, and it was just so intertwining with the leadership of the Green Party and then the leadership of the Howie Hawkins campaign, I mean, how can you expect anyone else to have a chance?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and the fact that Dario is still doing as well as he is, you know, even surrounded by all, like, everything against him essentially is phenomenal to me. But it's also disheartening, because it's like, you kind of feel like you just don't have a home anymore. And so we've been trying to focus with the United Left, and we're trying to do enough, like, a lot that we can for mutual aid and for direct action, and just making those connections and trying to build a home for 2022. And, you know, if that includes the Green Party, that's great. And we want that. But we cannot hold the Green Party to a separate standard than we would the National Progressives Party or the Movement for a People's Party or any party that we're with, because that's all we want is, you know, transparency and honesty and integrity. And, you know, I know there's people talk about splintering on the left a lot if you were to try and create a party outside of the Green Party. But, I mean, we need power in office. We need organizing. We need effort. We need honest, like, we don't need
Can we at least have a goddamn ethics committee? Like, can we have a party that has an ethics committee?
All the policies. Yeah, they have the policies that we want, but we just want to make sure that's being upheld and that there's liberty attached to it, and accountability and transparency. We need that ethics committee for sure.
Jen, so I got a question for you, because I feel like your experience is kind of unique in a way that, like, you're kind of new to the you just got really involved in politics. You just got, you know, within the last 7 or 8 months, you decided, you know what, I like Howie, probably for a lot of the same reason that everybody else liked him, but obviously, which is why you're here, that based off of the information you have seen, the way that Howie has handled all of this stuff, and the way that the Green Party has responded, obviously you're probably a little bit more critical than you have been. And I feel like that's a larger point that we should be addressing, is how many voters is Howie turning away from the entire Green Party because of how he is acting? How many voters has he turned away from himself in the general election because of how he's handled this? So if you could, like, elaborate on that a little bit, I appreciate it.
I feel like it's a lot. It's a lot of like, deception, I guess. There's a lot of people who don't know what really happens with the Green Party. We all assume that it works just like the DNC, but it's not. Again, like, we have to keep reiterating that it's decentralized, rules differ state to state, and getting involved with the Green Party, volunteering and everything, I learned a lot within the last month and a half. And so it's what people see as far as first impression. It's like they see Howie. It's like, okay, great, I'm on board. You know, it's whatever, that's the best option, I'm voting. But then, like, when they hear about the infighting, when they hear about, you know, someone like Andrea responding to voters, disenfranchising them, it's like, you know, it's unacceptable. And the voters are just kind of like, I don't know if I want to vote or back Howie in this sense, because this is wrong. How they're responding to voters is wrong. And
I've never said, I mean, like, I can disagree with the vote, but I've never said a vote in and of itself is a wasted vote. Because if you're voicing your opinion, and, you know, this is really I feel like the last thing we have, and even that's being compromised as we speak with these rampant election fraud issues. But when a person literally tells you all the reasons that you would vote for me in office, like not even just for myself, but what you believe the party is trying to achieve is bullshit. Basically, we're not trying to achieve that goal. I know we've been saying that. I know that our people have been out there saying that, but we're not trying to achieve that goal. Then effectively that's a wasted vote. Because, I mean, do you think that Howie would challenge election fraud to the degree that Jill Stein would? No.
No, absolutely not.
Erica, do you think that he would?
I would hope so. But,
Yeah.
you know, being realistic in it, I mean, it's either he knows what's going on with Andrea and, you know, he knows that, like, the activity she's participating in, you know, or he doesn't. But the thing is, and that was something I wrestled with, because like I said, I've been trying to justify these things personally. And I mean, he knew she was a co-chair in Colorado. So he obviously didn't see a problem with the conflict of interest and that she was on the national committee and, you know, the presidential committee. And he knew, like, it's easily,
I mean,
like,
he spoke at events where Dario was personally kept from speaking at.
Yeah.
And he knew.
And so it's hard.
And the party on behalf of Howie in that state just came out and straight up lied and said that never happened. Like, literally, like, that never happened. Dario has the emails to prove it. That when people challenged them and said, how could you let that happen? The Dario had to go during a lunch, speak out in a corner, basically, and people gathered around to listen to him speak. That's what he had to basically resort to. And when the people just say that never happened to support Howie, what exactly, once again, is the goal of the Green Party? And the question has to be asked, because this is something. So y'all, most of you all are familiar with my the DNC fraud lawsuit that I started with Jared and Elizabeth Lee Beck. You all know that the reason that lawsuit got started was because I said, I know what y'all think politics is like, and I know, but unfortunately y'all give too much of the benefit of the doubt, because infiltrators are everywhere, and it's actually super easy to do, especially when you have the most power in any given party, right? So Hillary Clinton was a front runner in 2016, and she had been basically, based off our investigations, had been preparing for a run in 2016 since 2009. Like, not even exaggerating. She had put the people at super PACs and the organizations in place to make sure she can funnel every cent she could into her campaign. But also, we found out that people would literally get paid by Hillary Clinton's super PAC. A week later, they would end up on Bernie Sanders' campaign as staff, which you all know, it actually violates the rules to accept checks from two campaigns at the same time. So this happens. Infiltration to prevent progressive movements happen. The CIA is well known and documented for infiltrating leftist movements all through the 60s, 70s, and the 80s. They were known for infiltrating the climate movements. They've been known for infiltrating anti-war movements. They were known for infiltrating Occupy Wall Street. I mean, otherwise, how would Elizabeth Warren be propped up as some type of damn thought leader and activist for, you know, in a situation we had really never heard of her before. They didn't talk about the fact that she just came out of nowhere. They didn't talk about any of the negatives, but somehow she was propped up as a champion with no history. And then, of course, she was astroturfed all the way into the Senate, and it paid off 10 years later, or 12 years, what was it, 2012? So 8 years later, when she literally was taking 20% of the progressive vote away from Bernie in every state that he was predicted to win. That's what her goal was. We had been telling you this for a while. It's whenever people were attacking us, we were like, y'all do know that this woman just transferred $10 million in corporate money from her Senate campaign. She just told y'all, I'm not gonna take any corporate money. Then she immediately we were being attacked because we were trying to tell y'all she's a progressive infiltrator. So it's time to deal with the reality, acknowledge there's a chance the Green Party has been infiltrated, and its entire goal has been to keep us from forming a party that can be competitive. Otherwise, why would they have told Jill Stein to give all that money back from the lawsuit she started in 2016 to hold both the Democrat and Republican Party accountable for election fraud? Why would that not be something that they've capitalized on for the last 3 years? How have you not introduced a single initiative to get back on the back on the debate stage, considering y'all haven't been back on the debate stage since Ross Perot? I think it was Ross Perot. That was the last time, right? Or was it Ralph Nader? One of the two. I'm pretty sure it was Ross Perot though. And if you haven't been back since then, you know you have zero chance of getting back on because, like, let's be honest, the polls that have been completely wrong for the last 4 years determine who makes the debate stage. So you have to take a legal action to do it. And yet, for the last 3 years, you've been sitting idle. And you've basically silenced anyone who's encouraged legal action in that department. How do you not have guaranteed ballot access in every single state at this point? You've been around nationally. So with the states, they've been around since the 80s. But nationally, their party formed in 2001 by Howie. It's 2020. You don't have guaranteed ballot access in every state by now? We've been dealing with Bushes. We've been dealing with Clintons, Trumps, Bidens along the way. And you still don't have national ballot access? You still haven't even tried? Jill Stein tried to get on the debate stage, but she can't do anything when the party years before that never did anything to get them on the debate stage, which is why the judge threw it out as political games. So it's kind of time to start maybe acknowledging there could be something more nefarious going on within the Green Party, just like the Koch brothers were able to buy off the Libertarian Party, and it's no longer the party of Ron Paul. So what do you all think about the possibility that we might just have to accept that there might be some type of corruption that might be a little bit more nefarious than simple incompetence or selfishness?
It's definitely, it's hard to really like come to grasp, because like I said, like we had no idea that a lot of this stuff was going on, and it is our goal, like I said earlier, with having something like the United Left that's able to help hold people accountable, that's able to put pressure from the outside and from the ground up to be able to push for change. And we're hoping over the rest of this election cycle, and then on from there, that we're going to be able to find out. We're going to be able to push for transparency and be able to push to have things like an ethics committee put forward. And because as more and more of the groups join in with the United Left, it just it just makes it so it's even more obvious that there's something going on, and we can push for change and we can be hopeful that we'll change. And that's what we had said when we talked to the national co-chairs, that we want to help the Green Party candidates. We want to help get people with our values into office. But I mean, first thing is first, it's like an ethics committee was the main thing that we were asking for, which is not a lot. They have a committee for everything.
You would figure that's like a procedural thing, right? Okay, so you got ethics committee, right? You feel like that's you check the block and move on to the next thing, and you're like, hold on. What? So you got trouble having an ethics committee. So what the hell? So how we do with corruption? Well, we're decentralized. And you have to understand how Green Party politics work. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not acceptable. And what's crazy to me, and you all have done maybe a bigger disservice than we'll be able to account for in the next year or so, because what you've shown is that it's taken a group outside of party politics whose whole goal is to unite the left to expose how much some elite in the Green Party have splintered the left. Because otherwise, people, what they do is candidates are a little bit more hesitant to go after the Green Party corruption. And that's not surprising, because even with the most progressive Democrats running, they're hesitant to go after the Democratic Party corruption, even at the state level, because a lot of the times, the truth is, they get silenced in a very similar way that Dario has. And I mean, if you can silence a presidential candidate who's a sitting congresswoman, I mean, what chance does a local state progressive running for a local state office or a congressional office have? Like, so people are quiet. They might be a little bit outspoken about it occasionally, but entire groups, like, for example, the Sunrise Movement, even Code Pink and some other groups, are invested in the success of Justice Democrats, brand new Congress. They're all invested in the success of the Democratic Party. So they're not going to call it out. Then, Nick Branya, being the professional, I mean, until recently, he's had to say something because he's been being smeared. But even Nick, as he was forming and building the Move for People Party, with others, he never actually smeared the Green Party at all. And yet it just took someone outside of party politics, a group outside of partisan party politics, to like raise a red flag and say, hold up, this is not how things are supposed to go. Because you all have worked with other organizations and leftist groups, and you know, outside of the normal type of like individual political corruption that you just see everywhere, it's been pretty smooth so far, right?
Yes.
And yet the largest leftist party, you're having the most issues from. I mean, people, you wanna know how bad the rules have got? Y'all know in the Green Party, you're not technically allowed to run on any other ticket, right? So for example, you can't be DSA and Green Party according to the rules that the Presidential Campaign Committee set up. You can't be Move For People's Party and Green Party. You can't be Working Families Party and Green Party. You can't be Socialist Party and Green Party. Except for, guess who that rule does not apply to? It doesn't apply to Howie because he's on multiple ballot lines. And he actually didn't even really become an official member again of the Green Party, apparently, until recently. Basically when it was time to run again. And yet, they've actually used this, supposedly, to keep other people from being officially recognized by the Green Party. This was something I think that Ian talked about last time he was on. So, what? It's since when? That's not how, I mean, once again, Democratic Party does not kick. If y'all recall, AOC ran on the Democratic ballot line and the Working Families ballot line, but Working Families endorsed Crowley, so he was the one officially allowed to run the ballot line, but then he lost. Then they demanded that he basically give up the ballot line because they could only have one, and yet he was able to still run as Working Families in the general election, and even though he couldn't run as a Democrat in the general election. But it's advantageous in a situation where you're a leftist and you're just trying to get as many votes as humanly possible, because some people might have faith in the organization over the individual. And for you to say anyone who is part of any other leftist organization or leftist party cannot run on our ballot line at all, and then first of all, that's ludicrous, right? Which is why they're allowing Howie to do it. Because in the general election, you're going to see Howie's name on multiple leftist party ballot lines, depending on the state. How is this any different than how the DNC or the RNC operate? If it's not worse. So now that we've gotten all that out in the air, now that we've addressed a lot of these issues, one, hell, Howie, Andrea, Kevin, y'all can come on the show and we can have a discussion about it. But I'll tell you this, there's some people who are going to be coming on this week that have been affected by these issues. Dario, we're talking to Nick Branya, because Nick Branya has a party, and if anybody should be able to tell you how a third party should operate, it'd be the guy that got Nina Turner and Roseanne Dario tomorrow to shout out his party. So he's probably going to have a lot to say about this, and how our expectations have really dictated that we should be above this at this point. But yet we're seeing the same type of patterns of behavior, trying to convince people to leave the Democratic Party to come into the party who supposedly is different, and they're acting the same. So, but with that all out in the open, what is the United Left's plan going forward to try and kind of patch up this schism that we've been seeing? Some of it may be, like I said, on purpose. Some of it may be accidental, but it's one thing for sure. The left is splintered, and it would really be maybe be hopeful for some people to hear that you all have been making efforts and it's actually been working out, trying to unite the left.
Well, I mean, we're going to continue like we've been doing. We're reaching out to as many organizations as possible. And it's not just organizations. I mean, it's also movements and groups. I had a fantastic meeting a couple weeks ago with Left Flank, who used to be Vets for Bernie, and they want to help. And we have the Rose Coalition, the Rose Caucus, the People's Power Movement, and they're the ones that are working with Chris Smalls to help with the strikes. I mean, and those are just like a couple. The National Progressives Party. I've talked to Nick with the Movement for a People's Party, and we're all hoping that we're able to kind of finalize some, relationships to be able to help each other as time goes on. And I mean, that's just some of them. Like, there's so many. I've been on calls from, 7 a.m. to 2 a.m. It's been long, but everyone has the same vision. And it honestly is, I don't want the glory. I don't want the title. I don't want the name. I want healthcare. I want people to stop hurting. I want a way that we're able to come together, and we can argue about theory at another time. And it's really coming together to focus on what matters. And what matters is not having to push aside everything that you believe in, and not having to disregard your morals and have to settle for the lesser of two evils. And it's seriously so possible. Like, I can't tell you guys.
Can I just say real quick? Y'all hear that? Y'all hear she just named a bunch of organizations and not individuals? Did y'all hear that? Organizations that are issue focused and issue based. And what have we been? I don't know, Erica, I don't know if you know this, but like one of my theme, my motto is that the left has always been its strongest whenever we're focused but decentralized.
Yes.
And that seems to be what y'all's goal is.
Yeah, because everyone has a little bit of something to offer with our goal for the future. And every organization is focusing on something else. And so when we're able to come together and we're able to give everyone a seat at the table and let everyone continue to be their own group and their own body, but be able to help each other with resources or volunteers or questions or skilled volunteers, and be able to really become unified. It's incredible. But the issue is, and my issue and our issue isn't with necessarily the entire Green Party, because like I said, the Virginia State Greens are the ones that put up for the ethics committee, and there are good people running for office that we really do love. But the issue is, these things need to be addressed, and our door stays open. And if these things can be addressed, if there can be things like an ethics committee put into place, if there can be accountability, and really just stand up for the people that are asking you to, like with the Lavender Caucus. We shouldn't be seeing the Lavender Caucus begging for help for months. With, by the way, if you're on Twitter, go look up their Twitter. You're going to see a petition that you can sign to help address it. I know they're super close to their goal, so if you can do that and share it, that'd be great. We're wanting to make sure that everyone is heard, and that there is a way to unite the left and go forward. But the way you do that is you guarantee a set of standards that we have to have and we have to carry, so we can all hold each other accountable. Because when you see things like the Democratic Party just be able to self-govern and just be infiltrated by corporate money, and and they're just able to do whatever they want, we don't want that to happen to a third party on the left. We are better than that. And that is what makes us different than the Democratic Party. Well, and so that's pretty much that. Yeah.
I love to hear it. I'm so pleased to hear that so many organizations are willing to work with you, understanding that that's going to have to include working with other organizations as well. For those people, I'm not like y'all not even incorporated, right? Y'all try to work with organizations who already have resources, so you don't have to take money and resources away from leftist organizations, correct?
We will be a nonprofit. It just, with COVID, it takes a minute, but we are not like a PAC or anything. And we're only a nonprofit in the way of, if we were wanting to support operations in the future of like mutual aid, direct action. But our goal isn't to spread the resources then. Our goal is to help spread the resources throughout the left.
Yeah, exactly. So that's awesome to hear. I want to thank you ladies for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Y'all have done some accidentally great investigative reporting. But, like I said, it's important to have these conversations. It's important to put the truth out there. It is not our job to be the arbiter of truth. But when we hear the truth, you have a responsibility at a certain point when it affects so many people to put it out there and let the people who are going to be participating in these elections and the people who have the ability to hold them accountable, whether it be on a committee, as a delegate, as an official, or as a voter, they have there's no way you're making an educated choice with incomplete information. It is simply the illusion of choice. So I appreciate you ladies coming on. For everybody else, make sure you share this video. Make sure you like it. Make sure you go follow the United Left on Twitter. I think it's our United Left, all one word.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So it's our United Left, all one word. So go follow them on Twitter. They're going to be having a lot of actions coming up. I am having